We're really honored to have been invited to give this presentation here at WebAIM. Gaby and I gave this presentation 2023, I believe it was, at Accessing Higher Ground in Colorado, and a variation on this presentation. And then we gave it again at CSUN the following year, 2024. And so it's a frequently requested presentation. People want to know sort of what's the latest. And so we're honored to have the opportunity to dust it off and revisit some of the things that we talked about over the last couple of years. So we're all at the University of Washington, and I'll let Gaby and Alaina introduce themselves when it's their turn to talk. But we're going to be going back and forth, the three of us, quite a bit. And at the University of Washington, we're driven by the ADA rule, rapidly approaching deadline of April, to make sure that all of our digital content is accessible. And so that we do a lot of work with websites and, helping web designers and developers, but also are involved in the procurement process, in making video accessible, and in making documents accessible, documents and slides. And so we do have Microsoft on our campus. We also have Google, and we recently introduced Canva to the mix. And so the question that we had worked with before when we did this presentation originally was, how do we create accessible content with the Microsoft tools or with the Google tools, since both are used on campus? And so we did some extensive testing and comparative work to try and figure that out and to have a message that we could communicate to content authors at the University of Washington. And so since Canva is now also being used at the UW, we've added that to the mix as well. So the website where we communicate pretty extensively on digital accessibility to our campus is uw.edu/accesstech. And at the bottom of this slide, there is a link that just extends that a little bit. So uw.edu/accesstech/webaim 2025 is where you can find these slides. And ultimately, Jared says we can use the recording as well, and we'll have that up on that same page. So if anybody saw this presentation at either Accessing Higher Ground or at CSUN, we kind of framed it as the big match, between the giants. So Godzilla versus King Kong. Of course, it wasn't really, there was no violence. It was not, a knockdown, drag out between Microsoft and Google. This was just something that we thought would be kind of fun. And this year, because we've added a new character, then we're throwing Mothra into the mix as well. But again, no violence, and we're not intending to pick a winner here. We are just sharing our top 10 techniques for authoring accessible documents and slides. And as we do that, we look at each of the tools, the Microsoft tools, both Word and PowerPoint, as well as Google Docs and Slides, as well as Canva. And we ask, how do we execute this technique with each of those platforms? In some cases, there are some platforms that don't support the particular technique that we're talking about. But again, no winners and losers necessarily. We're just sharing what we know, and people who are using these platforms may need to adjust things a little bit in order to produce accessible content. We also do look at how well accessibility survives if the content is exported to PDF. And when we gave the original presentation, we did a lot of testing with screen readers to see how well screen readers supported the output, because a lot of the top 10 techniques that we're talking about are screen reader specific. But that has proven to be really hard to keep up with. Over the last couple of years, it's changed extensively. We have done some ongoing testing, but we just find that really the top 10 techniques are widely known best practices, and screen readers should support them. So we're just going to kind of assume they should. And if you follow these techniques, then you're likely to get good results. But there are many variations in whether and how screen readers support these techniques, and that's constantly changing and more than we can track on an ongoing basis. So bottom line, if you do discover that you execute these techniques and you've got a screen reader in a particular browser or whatever the case may be, failing to support the techniques where they should be supported, then we encourage you to file a bug, probably with the screen reader maker. It might be more complicated than that, but that's a good place to start, so that ultimately, if everybody follows these techniques when authoring their content, and they're using tools that support the techniques, then the screen readers should support them. Also, just a note, Google does not do some things. So docs and slides, you don't have an accessibility checker. Historically, you have not been able to export to a tagged PDF, but Grackle is a plugin that fills those gaps. And so you can learn more about that at grackledocs.com. We have chosen not to report, other than in a couple places we do mention what Grackle can do, but generally we're just looking at the native capabilities of Google. When we talk about Google, we're not talking about Google with the Grackle plugin. So with that, I'm going to hand off to my colleague Gaby to talk about technique number 1.
Excellent. Thank you, Terrill. Hi, everybody. My name is Gaby Jongh, and I'm a member of the IT accessibility team at the University of Washington. And I work with our campus community to help them create digital documents that are born accessible from the start. So let's get started with the first technique by talking about alt text. Next slide, please. So alt text should provide clear contextual description of visual content, which makes it accessible to people who use screen readers. In Microsoft Word and PowerPoint for desktop, add the alt text by launching the alt text panel. And to do this, users will right-click on the image, then select View Alt Text, as shown on the screenshot that is included in this slide. To open the alt text panel in PowerPoint for the web, right-click on the image and select alt text from the context menu, which is also shown on a screenshot on this slide as well. In Word for the web, the process for adding alt text is a little bit different. Right-clicking on an image won't provide the option to add or edit alt text from the context menu, since that option is hidden by default. So instead, users should select Format Picture from the context menu, and that opens the Format Picture panel. And then once the alt text panel is open, the description would be entered into the text field there, as we see on the screenshot on this slide. And if an image is purely decorative and doesn't really add any meaningful information, there is an option to mark, a checkbox option there to mark as decorative. And this will hide that image from screen readers, and it will just skip over it. There's also a button labeled Generate Alt Text for Me, and this uses basic artificial intelligence to create a draft description. And sometimes this can be a helpful starting point, but we don't recommend relying on it as the final output for alt text. It should be reviewed for accuracy and clarity. In Word for the web, to add or edit alt text through the Format Picture panel, we see a screenshot of that here on this slide. The alt text is entered into the description field. And unlike the desktop version, there really is no option to mark images as decorative. So every image added in Word for the web, it must include alt text. And then for branding purposes, authors may want to include a logo on every slide. And usually those kinds of logo images are placed on the master slide so that they appear consistently throughout the deck. And while it is possible to add alt text to images on the master slide, screen reader support can vary. Some of them may announce the information while others may not. And so this kind of connects back to the slide earlier that Terrill was talking about, screen reader support. And so I encourage you to reach out and file a bug if you encounter unexpected behavior. So for our testing purposes, we chose to artifact the images on the master slide. And to do this in PowerPoint for desktop, go to the View tab, and on the ribbon there, select Slide Master. Then from there, select the images and right-click, and then choose Alt Text, and then go through the same processes that I had mentioned before, and mark those images as decorative.
So in Google, it's pretty much the same process. You right click on an image and then there's an option to select alt text from the context menu. The dialog that appears is a little different. There's the description field for adding your alt text. There's also a title field that appears under advanced options, and it may be collapsed by default. And if you expand that, then you get a title field. But in recent years, they have updated the description of what that's for, just to clarify the difference between the two fields. As it says here, a title will appear as a tooltip when published to the web. And we generally discourage using that field at all and just focus on the description. If you export to PDF, or save as Word or PowerPoint, or any sort of movement from one platform to the other, the description field survives and the title field does not. So it's probably best to avoid using the title field. Also, a big omission here in Google is you cannot mark images as decorative. And so our message to content authors at the UW is only include informative images in your documents and slides if you're authoring with Google. Don't include any decorative images.
Hi everyone, I'm Alaina Foust. I'm the lead digital accessibility consultant on the Accessible Technology Services team at University of Washington. Before that, I was actually a accessibility evaluator at WebAIM, so it's really exciting to be here. My role involves reviewing vendor products and university websites for accessibility, and I worked with a student team who tested Canva for accessibility, so I'm really excited to share their findings with you today. Alternative text in Canva is very similar to Microsoft products. You're going to right-click the image to show the context menu and select alternative text from the menu to display the Canva alt text panel. For images that are purely decorative, you can select Mark as decorative, and that's a checkbox in this alt text panel. You can type up to 250 characters of alternative text, and there, similarly to Microsoft, is a Suggest for Me button that uses AI to generate a description of your image. And like Gaby said, be careful, review it. If you decide to use it, perhaps decide just to use it as a jumping off point.
Okay, so converting to PDF from any of these platforms, first of all, Google does now support tag PDF. So this is a new development. Since the last time we gave this presentation, previously they did not, and the only way to get a tag PDF was through Grackle. At the moment, it's only Google Docs, though. Google Slides still does not create a tag PDF. You can save as PDF, but it's not a tag PDF. So you got to add the tags post export. But again, Grackle does fill that gap. So if you have access to Grackle, that could be a solution. Otherwise, you're going to have to do some work on your PDF after exporting from Google Docs. Canva alt text for images is passed to the PDF, and images that are marked as decorative are not properly tagged in the PDFs. They are actually part of the tag tree, whereas they should be artifacted. So that's a word that Gaby has used a couple times, but that basically removes decorative images from the tag tree so screen readers just ignore them. That's the appropriate technique. We actually have met when Alaina and the student team, did their Canva accessibility review. We actually met with their accessibility team, shared our findings, generated a report, and shared that with them. And they were very receptive, and a lot of things they're already working on. And this is one of those that is a known bug, and we expect it to be fixed soon. With Microsoft Office, there are many ways to export PDF, and all methods result in similar output. And the thing that sort of is consistent between them all is you need to keep an eye out for a checkbox or radio button that enables tags. So tags might not necessarily be included in the output, but that's the desired result. And so just a few examples: if you're on a Mac and you save as and then select PDF as your file format, there's a radio button to choose best for electronic distribution and accessibility. You want to choose that one. Don't choose best for printing if you want your accessibility features to be preserved. If you, in Windows, choose export and choose PDF as the desired output, then there's a dialog that appears, and within that dialog there's a checkbox that says document structure tags for accessibility. So again, the wording is a little bit different with these options, but the idea is the same. You want structure, you want tags, you want accessibility, and those need to be checked. I think this is checked by default. However, if in the previous dialog, when you choose options, there's an option to also choose minimize size. And that actually has the effect of unchecking that document structure tags for accessibility, because those do add just a very small, amount of size to your file. And so that gets unchecked when you minimize. Then you have to go back into options and recheck it. So be really careful if you minimize. It's going to be a two-step process. If you have PDF Maker installed, then the interface is a little bit different, and you'll go to export and then you'll choose create Adobe PDF. And that too has a dialog with some options, again, expressed a little bit differently, but there's a checkbox there to enable accessibility and reflow with tagged Adobe PDF. So again, bottom line, you don't need to know exactly how it's expressed, but just watch for something with that kind of language about accessibility or tags or structure. Okay, technique 2.
All right, technique number 2, complex images and alt text. So when you're adding alt text to complex images such as charts or graphs in Word or PowerPoint, and this is specific to the desktop client, make sure that the entire object is selected rather than an individual component. Now, the nice thing is if a single component is accidentally selected, then the option to add alt text will actually be grayed out. So you won't actually be able to enter alt text for those individual components. Just make sure that that entire chart or graph does have a frame around it. So once that full object is selected, then right-click and choose View Alt Text from the context menu, and then follow the same steps that we covered earlier for adding a description in the alt text panel for Word or PowerPoint for the desktop client. Now, since PowerPoint is such a visual medium, it might make more sense. Oops, where are we at here?
There's one more bullet. I think I cut you off too soon.
Oh,
Is that
okay.
sure?
Yeah.
Word and PowerPoint for the web.
Word and PowerPoint for the web, actually, it's the same for Word and PowerPoint for the web, charts and graphs are not supported. So if you want to add complex graphics such as Word and charts, then you would need to do that from the desktop client.
Okay, then this one is actually mine, right? We're talking about Google. And so select the object. Again, it's similar to what Gaby just described. Select the object, right click, select alt text, and then you've got the alt text option. And once again, description is really where the alt text goes. In this particular screenshot, we also entered a points scored title, but the description is the more critical of the two fields.
And Canva is the same as the previous two. You're going to make sure that you select that entire object, table, or chart, and then you'll right click and select alternative text from the context menu and write your alt text in the alternative text field.
Okay, grouping images. So sometimes it might make more sense if you are including several images in a PowerPoint presentation to group those images together and then assign alt text to that entire group rather than writing a description for each one of those images separately. So to group images, select all of the images that you want to group together, and then from the home ribbon, select the drop-down option and then choose group from there. Now, once they are grouped as a collective, then you can add the alt text to the whole set at once, similar to the steps that we walked you through earlier on the other slides. Right-clicking and then from the context menu, either choosing View Alt Text or Add Alt Text from there.
So this is one of the techniques where Google actually falls short, that you can group images together and form one composite image. However, it is not possible to add alt text to the group itself. And so we recommend that if you are using images this way within your slide, usually this happens within slides rather than documents where you've got a lot of pieces to the puzzle, but really they're just communicating one thing, one overall message. PowerPoint really is better for that because of this ability to group images together and then just add alt text to that group. Otherwise, if you're attached to using Google, then you're going to have to get creative in how you describe these individual components so that the relationships between them are clear. And I think generally that gets pretty messy describing an overall message using alt text for its individual components.
Canva is similar to Google. You can select multiple images and group them. When you select all of them, a little menu will show up and you can select group to create a group. However, you can't add alternative text for the group as a whole.
Okay, so what happens when you export from Word or PowerPoint to PDF? So we just focus on Microsoft since you can't add alt text to a group in either of the other platforms. When you export from the web or from Mac, complex image and alt text survive. However, we just found yesterday, actually, as we were preparing for this presentation, that no longer happens in Windows Desktop. I'm pretty sure it used to be okay when we gave this presentation before, but a new bug has been introduced. And when you export from Windows Desktop, the charts and graphs don't appear at all in the tag tree. So those are completely inaccessible and just missing for screen reader users. So, and if diagrams are included in Word, regardless if alt text was or was not included in the native document, the alt text does not survive and is replaced with scripted nonsense text. So a couple of bugs there, and we filed those yesterday, and hopefully Microsoft will come up with a fix pretty quickly.
Okay, technique number 3, headings and slide titles. Headings in Word. So headings and subheadings provide the structure for a document. Main headings identify the overall topic, while subheadings mark the start of new sections. In Word for Desktop and for the web, users can apply headings by highlighting text and then selecting the appropriate level from the Styles panel. And we have a screenshot here included on this slide that shows that style panel. And that style panel is launched by selecting it from the home ribbon. And this is just a friendly reminder that marking text larger and bold actually does not create a true heading. For accessibility, headings really must be applied programmatically through the built-in heading styles, so assistive technologies can recognize and navigate the structure, the document structure, using those appropriately programmed headings from in the document.
Okay, very similar in Google Docs. From the menu bar, there is a style widget that allows you to select headings level 1, 2, 3, and 4. And if you don't like the way those headings look, then you can change the style of the heading, and that impacts the headings throughout your document. And so same as in Word, and that is a best practice. Don't choose your headings because of the way they look. You have control over that. Choose them for their hierarchical relationship, how they communicate, the structure of headings within your document.
Currently, headings created in Canva are mainly text styles and should not be relied on to provide structure. They are not reliably programmatic headings, is the way to think about them. But you can technically create visual headings in your documents from the menu bar by selecting the proper style from the menu bar. Currently in the menu bar, we have an H1 or an H2 option, and that's at the top of the document editor. Note, however, that changing any styles besides color will result in the text no longer displaying as a heading in your menu bar. So be careful with that. You can also create headings from the Canva side panel by selecting the text option and then using the heading or subheading option to then type that kind of text in your document. But changes are upcoming, and Canva is currently working on providing in that side panel a text semantics option, and that's going to include elements like paragraph, H1 through H6, quotes, and more. And after they make that change, you should reliably be able to create programmatic headings to give your documents structure in Canva.
Slide titles. Slide titles in PowerPoint and Google slide titles, they function very similar to headings. Title slides rather, map to heading 1, while titles on content slides map to heading 2. And for accessibility, it's important that each slide has a slide title and that each slide title is unique. So to make sure that the structure is conveyed correctly to assistive technologies, it's important to use the built-in slide layouts. And we actually have a screenshot of the built-in slide layouts that are included in PowerPoint. And that is what we used for our testing purposes. And these layouts are designed to preserve the proper heading levels and the proper reading order as well. So another thing that authors can do to help with increasing accessibility is they can create templates that are built with accessibility in mind. And that helps provide consistency and also helps reinforce when creating presentations.
And I'll just chime in because Google Slides is mentioned here on the same slide, and it's because it essentially is the same. And I will add that if you are with an organization, then you can create your own organization templates, and so everybody's presenting, on brand. We've done this at the University of Washington, where particularly PowerPoint templates are available and have been designed with accessibility in mind. So they've got proper slide titles, they've got proper read order, all the stuff that comes up in accessibility. If you start with an accessible template, then as a content author, you have a lot less that you need to worry about. And so that's highly recommended for organizations to create their own templates, but to be sure that they are created with accessibility in mind.
All right, Canva. While page titles can be added to slides in Canva presentations, they should only be used for reference when you're working within Canva. Because these page titles that you can add by clicking a menu button and adding your slide title in the context menu, they don't survive exporting to PowerPoint or PDF. So you'd have to redo that work if you're working in Canva.
Okay, so what happens after exporting? First, looking at headings. Headings do export as expected from Word to PDF and from Google Docs to PDF. now that Google Docs supports tagged PDF, it actually supports very good tagged PDFs. Very simple, very easy to read the tag tree, and it does, for the most part, the right things. In Canva, as Alaina mentioned, what currently exists as headings are really just decorative headings. There are headings in PDF that gets exported from Canva, but they aren't reliable. So you may select heading and subheading, from that menu, or H1, H2 from the toolbar within Canva. But when you export, you may be surprised to find that the H1 and the H2 are not the ones that you selected, that there's a whole separate algorithm that's being applied when you export to PDF. So again, that new feature within Canva of having structured, a menu from which you can select structured components for your content, including headings 1 through 6, that's gonna impact the export so that you'll have reliable headings within your document and reliable headings within your export. As for slide titles, as Gaby mentioned, when exporting from PowerPoint to PDF, the title on the home slide is H1, or on the title slide, and then all subsequent titles are H2. And so the entire PDF has a good outline. So you've got one H1, and then you've got a whole bunch of H2s that mark the start of each new slide. So we really like that. Google Slides, as mentioned previously, does not support tagged PDF. And when exporting from Canva presentations to PowerPoint, the PowerPoint slides do not have titles. And there are other problems as well with the PowerPoint output. So that is a significant limitation of Canva currently.
Okay, technique number 4, lists. Lists in Word and PowerPoint. So lists are another way to provide structure to information, especially when content can naturally be described as like a series of items, or maybe a series of steps or key points. It should be formatted as a list. In Word and PowerPoint, the tools for adding bulleted lists or numbered lists or multi-leveled lists, which would be a combination of maybe numbers and bullets or letters that are nested, those tools are all available on the home ribbon for PowerPoint and Word.
And similarly in Google Slides, from the menu bar, you can select various kind of lists: checklist, bulleted list, numbered list.
In Canva, from the menu bar, you click 1 to 3 times for the type of list that you want to create. So clicking the bulleted list item, 1 click gives you a bulleted list. Then after that first click, that option dynamically changes. If you were to click it a second time, you would get a numbered list, and then a third click would create a list of checkboxes. But I'd like to note that the checkbox inputs from this list of checkboxes is not keyboard accessible.
Okay, so after exporting, lists are tagged appropriately as a list from Word and PowerPoint to PDF. And just a note that the PDF spec only includes an L tag, a list tag, so it doesn't distinguish between unordered list or ordered list as HTML does. Google Docs and Canva as well, both also generate the expected output in a tagged PDF.
Technique number 5, tables. Tables in Word and PowerPoint. So if you're including a table in your PowerPoint presentation or Word document, it's really important to make sure that they're formatted accurately so that they clearly communicate the relationship between the data. Tables never should be used to control layout. Doing that can really interfere with the reading order for assistive technologies. So simple tables added to either your document or your presentation can be made accessible by selecting the table itself. And when you do that, then you'll see a new design tab appear in the ribbon. And then by default, if you go to that design tab, you'll see check boxes for header row and first column are selected. And we've included a screenshot here on this slide that shows that information from the design tab. So header row identifies the column headers and first column identifies the row headers. Now there's also the option for banded rows, which is also checked by default, and that's mostly for visual styling and alternates the colors of the rows. Now, when it comes to complex tables, that's really not possible to make them accessible in Word or PowerPoint. It's not possible to associate the data accurately. So it's really important to simplify any tables that may have either merged or split cells so that they have an equal number of rows or columns.
In Google Docs, a little bit different process. You select the top row of the table, and then from the menu bar, choose Format, then Table, and there's an option to pin header up to this row. And that does have the effect of tagging the cells in that row as table headers. So that's for column headers. There is no way to set row headers within Google. Also, this feature is only in Google Docs. It's not available in Google Slides.
To create a table in Canva, select a table. You can select a table design from the side panel, from the Elements option in the side panel. And it's not possible to mark header cells or to pin a header row in Canva.
Okay, so when you export from Word or PowerPoint, if header row and or first column are checked, then those tables are properly tagged in PDF. So that gets exported perfectly. Word and PowerPoint have no mechanism for marking up complex tables, as Gaby just described. And so if you do create complex tables and then export to PDF, then those will need to be tagged in the PDF. Adobe Acrobat Pro has a mechanism for adding the right tags to tables to communicate all those complex relationships, but that's going to have to happen post-production. In Google Docs, the column headers, if you've identified those, use that feature to identify the column headers, then those are properly tagged in export. And in Canva, there's actually, a bigger problem that tables themselves do not survive. The table there's no semantic tagging. The table tag, TR, TH, TD, tags that you would typically associate with tables are not present at all. Instead, everything is a non-struct tag, which is, you could call it a div, a non-semantic tag that represents a table. And so this is a problem in Canva. I would say stay away for now from Canva if you have tables in your content that are going to need to be exported.
Okay, technique number 6, links. The techniques for adding meaningful link text is the same in Word, PowerPoint, and Google Docs and Google Slides. And that's essentially just highlighting some meaningful text that actually gives a little bit of a description as to where that link might take the user. So you would highlight that text and then right click and then select hyperlink from the context menu. And then we also have an image of what that would look like from Office products on this slide as well. And then from here, authors would enter in the URL in the address field, and that will turn that meaningful text into a hyperlink.
Canva is similar, selecting your descriptive text and then selecting the link icon in the context menu will open a panel for you to be able to enter your hyperlink into that input and create your link in your document.
Okay. And good news, after exporting to PDF, from every platform, those links are properly coded in the PDF. And so links is one thing that works really well across all platforms.
Technique number 7, document title. So to meet accessibility requirements, every document needs to have a proper document title. And the steps to add them are a little bit different depending upon if you're on the desktop client and if you're in Windows or Mac. So we've tried to put the steps here on this slide. So I'm going to go over them really briefly. So if you're on a Windows desktop machine, you would go to File, Info, and then Show All Properties. And that's where the document title field would be. If you're on a Mac desktop for Windows or PowerPoint, you go to File and then Properties, and you'd add the document title in the Summary section or Summary field. Now, something to keep in mind is this is different from applying the title style in the Styles pane. Now, previously I talked about heading levels, and you would use the Styles pane to apply a heading level to some text, and that would create a heading. But that's not actually true if you select the title style from the Styles pane. It's actually just a style. It doesn't have anything to do with the document metadata. So using these steps to enter in the metadata makes the document more searchable and indexable. In Word and PowerPoint for the web, the title comes from the editable field in the upper corner of the screen, and that is used as the title element for PowerPoint or Word for the web.
Okay, in Google, I can add a document title in the upper left text field, and so pretty straightforward process.
Canva's similar. You can add your document title in the relevant field in the document editor's menu bar up at the top. It's located on the right side in Canva instead of the left side, like it is in Google.
Okay, so what happens after export? In Word and PowerPoint for desktop, the document title is passed to the PDF as expected. And so if you then go into the document properties, you'll find the title there within the document properties. In Word and PowerPoint for the web, the file name is not passed to the PDF as the document title. And so that would need to be added again separately after you've created the PDF. Author is passed to the PDF, but document title is not. Google Docs and Canva both export the document title as expected to the PDF.
Technique number 8, language. So it's important to define the language of a document or even parts of a document if they are in a different language, so that screen reader users can understand the content with a proper context. The screen readers can change language on the fly if the user actually has those languages installed on their devices. Now, depending upon if you're on Word or PowerPoint for the desktop or for the web, it's a little bit different steps. So to set the language for the entire document in Word or PowerPoint on your desktop client, you'd go to the Review tab and then select Language from there. Now, if you're in Word for the web, that option is located under Editor and then Set Proofing Language. And in both situations, then you would choose the correct language from the list that appears from the menu there. Now, when setting the language for only part of the document, you would just highlight that section of the text and then repeat the same steps as outlined on this slide here. So there is a limitation to be aware of if you're creating a PowerPoint presentation from the web, not the desktop client. It's possible to set the language for the entire presentation, but it's not possible to assign a language to the individual part of the content.
In Google, overall, both in Docs and Slides, you can set the language of the document. From the File menu, you choose a language and then you select the language of the document. But it is not possible to set a different language for foreign language of parts. If you select text and try to set the language, then it's going to override the overall document language. So you're sort of stuck with the document language only, no language of parts possible in Google.
You cannot select a language for a document in Canva. You can only change your language for your entire account in your account settings. That does appear to change your document's language attribute, but it's very overwhelming. You have to speak that language in order to make that happen. Additionally, it's not possible to set a different language for foreign language parts within a document.
So as far as exporting goes, the language of the document and language of the parts, it do survive the export from Word and PowerPoint to PDF. So if you've got foreign language content, I would say, even though we're not making recommendations here, this is one where Microsoft really has it down, and the other tools have some work to do. With Google, language of the document does survive the export from Google Docs or Slides to PDF, but again, it's not possible to support defining a separate language of the parts. So you would have to do that after export within the PDF. And same thing within Canva.
Technique number 9, reading order. So we tested how to adjust reading order of PowerPoint in 2 different ways. So the first method, we utilized the selection pane. And on this slide, we have an image of what the selection pane would look like. And the selection pane has been around and available in PowerPoint for quite some time. To access that, you'd go to the home ribbon and then open the Arrange drop down and then choose Selection Pane. And that's going to open up a pane on the right-hand side. But the content is listed in reverse order. So from bottom to top. And that can be a little bit confusing, especially if you have to adjust the reading order, which can be done just by clicking on those or selecting those images or elements rather, and then dragging them to the correct spot. But it is a little bit, takes a little bit of getting used to since the information is in reverse order. Now, recently, Microsoft has introduced a second method for checking the reading order in PowerPoint, and that is using a reading order pane. It's been available on the Windows desktop for maybe about a year or a little bit more of that, but it's also available on the Mac desktop client as well. So to expose the reading order pane, go to the Review tab and then select Check Accessibility. And then from there, choose the option for Reading Order Pane, and that will open up a reading pane on the right-hand side. It's a little bit different. So we also have an image of the reading order pane on this slide as well. And in this time, the content will be listed in logical reading order from top to bottom, which makes it a lot easier to check and adjust the reading order as necessary.
Within Google Slides, there's nothing comparable to either the selection pane or the reading order pane. You can change the order of content within a slide by sending it to forward or backward or all the way to the front or all the way to the back. But in working with this, I have found that it's very difficult to sort of keep track of where things are. What is the overall structure? What is the overall order of the content on a slide? So it would be nice to have something like what Microsoft provides, where you've got a list of the content in the order in which it's going to be read, and then you can manipulate it within that context. Otherwise, you have to be pretty meticulous to sort of keep track of where things are cognitively, and then send things backward or forward to get to the desired order.
Canva currently provides no means of controlling reading order, but they do tell us that this functionality is coming soon.
All right, technique number 10, accessibility checkers. So accessibility checkers are built into Word and PowerPoint, and they do provide feedback to authors on how accessible their content is. And the accessibility checker is included in both the desktop clients and the web version. And to launch that, users would go to the review tab and then select accessibility. And then that accessibility panel will open on the right-hand side of the screen. From there, an accessibility report will show the results for things like color contrast, missing alt text, captions on audio and video, and also it will check table structure and really overall document structure. And we've included a screenshot of an accessibility report on this slide here. Now, users can click the errors in the accessibility report, and that will take you directly to where that issue is located within your document or within your slide presentation. And it will also provide step-by-step guidance on how to fix those problems and why they might be barriers for somebody who uses assistive technology.
Google actually have an easy job here reporting on Google's slide. They do not have an accessibility checker. Grackle does fill this gap. So that's, if you have Grackle, then you've got an accessibility checker for docs and slides, but otherwise it's not something that Google provides natively.
Canva does have an accessibility checker that you can access by navigating from File to Accessibility in the drop-down menu, and then check Design Accessibility. That will open an accessibility checker that can check for small text, color contrast, and missing alternative text. It provides suggestions to fix issues. A note for text size is that if you fix, quote, small text size, using the accessibility checker, it will only make your text at least 12 pixels or 12 points large. And then color contrast, it's a bit helpful where it does provide some colors that meet contrast based on your design. So that can be helpful.
Okay, well, that's the end of our 10 techniques. And we are happy to answer any questions in the time that remains.
Okay, thank you. Oh, that was just wonderful. There are many questions, way more than we'll be able to get to in the few minutes that we have. I'll pose a few. I will leave the Q&A panel open. And so, Terrill, Gaby, Alaina, maybe before the next session starts, if you're willing, you could go in and maybe just type some answers to any that we don't get to. So I'll try to pose some of these quickly. First question, has the UW team explored Venngage as an alternative to Canva? It has some good budding accessibility support. And there were some comments in the chat about Venngage and its accessibility support.
We have not. I have heard that same information, but for whatever reason, we established a relationship with Canva, and it was launched with UW branded themes. And so that has been kind of our focus is on, since Canva is out there, let's see what we can do to help them understand our needs and make it more accessible.
Okay, great. Maybe your third iteration of the presentation might do add Venngage. So, okay, thank you.
We'll need another monster.
yeah, another monster. Next question, does the Grackle plugin cost money?
It does, but it is, I think, affordable. An enterprise license costs very little compared to other enterprise license. So I encourage you to explore that with them. Okay, great. Next question from Robert. Any suggestions for alt text for links when exporting to PDF? The PAC checker requests it, and it seems manually adding them is the suggestion. I've tried different means of exporting the PDF, but the same result.
Yeah, I can take that one. Yeah, so adding alt text to links, it is part of the PAC checker. It does flag it if those links don't have appropriate alt text. And usually I would just use more descriptive language to give a little bit more information as to where that link will take them. And this is really helpful if the link itself is just a URL and does not include descriptive links. So it can be a little bit tricky if you already have a descriptive link in your PDF document, and then you also need to add alt text to it. You don't want to have the same alt text as the descriptive link itself, because that can be redundant.
Okay, great, thank you. There was a question about the accessibility of the techniques themselves and the tools. In other words, could a screen reader user, for example, create accessible docs using these techniques?
That's an excellent question, and beyond the scope of what we have researched for this specifically. So I'm hesitant to comment. I know that in general, Microsoft products can be used, by users with assistive technologies, users with other disabilities. Google perhaps as well. Not so sure about Canva. We have not delved in, to the authoring side and looked at accessibility. So, but that's an excellent question, and definitely one that if you're deploying these tools, then one that you should be, attentive to.
And I can add a little bit more information about that, Terrill. Actually, there's another resource, another person, Karen McCall, has done a lot of research on using Microsoft products as someone who has a disability. She herself is a screen reader user, and she's done a lot of research in that area, and she might be a good option to look if you have questions about that.
Great, thank you. Okay, next question. Could you please recommend reliable alt text generators? So I think this is maybe talking about like AI alt text generators. For an audience, it's maybe just creating documents. They may not have a lot of technical knowledge about alternative text and generation. And yeah, so I don't know, are there any thoughts about using those types of tools, or any recommendations there?
Thanks to Courtney for typing in a suggestion there. I don't have any specific tools to recommend, although we have been playing around quite a bit with AI and alt text for complex images in particular, because generally with simple images, we just like to educate people on how to consider context. What are you trying to communicate with this image, and then type alt text that is appropriate for that message. But complex images get really challenging when it comes to describing them, and AI is doing a better job of at least providing a starting point, or providing a tool that end users, screen reader users, can use to study and explore and ask, have sort of a dialogue with the AI about the complex image that they're looking at. This is still has some room to grow, as all things AI. But a lot of promise there, I think.
Great, thank you. There was a question about in Microsoft Word, what the difference is between using export to PDF versus save as Adobe PDF. I think you covered that a little bit, but maybe a little clarification if there is a difference and what those might be.
Export to PDF, it has more options, whereas save as to PDF is just a very straight, quick forward way to save the document as a PDF from there. But if the user wants to have more options, such as Terrill brought up, things like compressing the document, that's in the export options. But doing that can kind of compromise your PDF document. So it's a different way of saving or exporting the document to PDF, and provides a little bit more options for the user.
Okay.
Also, I don't think we included this in our slide deck, but do not print to PDF. So there's an option to print to PDF as well as save as PDF, and that's going to result in a PDF that does not have tags. And so if you've paid attention to your accessibility when authoring, and then you print to PDF, you lose all of those accessibility features in the output.
Okay, thank you. There were several questions and comments about in Word using the title style versus heading level 1, and also a question about how assistive technologies would or would not handle the title style as opposed to heading level 1.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the title style in the styles pane actually maps as a paragraph. So it doesn't actually map as a heading level. There was a hot minute there where it actually did map as an H1, but that was very temporary, and it's gone back to mapping as an H1. So so just be very careful about using that title style, and just be aware that if you do use it, it does not map as a heading level, but it in fact maps as a paragraph.